It was supposed to be just another tense episode of Piers Morgan Uncensored, but that night, the tension would snap. Piers Morgan sat at his desk, papers in hand, grinning like a fox that smelled a trap. Across from him on the split screen was Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, calm, composed, and ready. The cheerin' read, live, Crockett vs. Morgan, free speech or personal smear. They'd clashed before, but this time was different. In the days leading up to the show, Piers had made a series of inflammatory remarks about Jasmine's past legal work, calling it questionable at best, and even suggesting she had covered up crimes for political friends. None of it was true, and Crockett knew it. But instead of firing back online like so many others, she'd gone silent. Until now. Congresswoman Crockett, Piers began with his trademark smirk, you've been awfully quiet lately. Are you finally ready to answer for your record? Jasmine raised an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. Actually, Piers, she said, sliding a document across her desk toward the camera, I'm here to deliver something. Piers blinked. What's that supposed to be? She held up the paper and leaned forward. A lawsuit. For defamation. On live television. There was a beat of silence. Then, chaos. For a moment, Piers Morgan didn't say a word, a rarity in itself. His eyes darted between the paper Jasmine Crockett held and the camera, as if waiting for someone in his earpiece to tell him this was a prank. It wasn't. You're joking, he finally muttered, a nervous chuckle creeping into his voice. This is a stunt. You're not seriously filing a lawsuit on live television. Oh, I'm completely serious, Jasmine said coolly. My legal team filed it this morning in the U.S. District Court. And I thought it would be appropriate to let you know the professional way, in public, since that's where you tried to smear me. Piers' face turned a shade paler. He grabbed a folder off his desk, fumbling through notes as if he could find a way out of the situation through paper. This is absurd. I'm a journalist. It's commentary. You can't sue me for having an opinion. Jasmine didn't flinch. You crossed the line from opinion into defamation when you accused me of criminal conduct without evidence. You said I covered up crimes. That's not journalism, that's reckless. Viewers around the world were watching in disbelief. The live stream chat was exploding. Social media was already lit with hashtags like hashtag Crockett vs. Piers and hashtag ServeLive. Piers' voice rose, cracking slightly. You're trying to silence me. This is censorship. No, Jasmine replied firmly. This is accountability. And then, right there on air, Piers slammed his pen down and ripped off his earpiece. I won't be part of this circus, he barked, standing up as his producers scrambled behind the scenes. But the cameras were still rolling. Piers Morgan stormed off set, muttering under his breath, completely unaware that the cameras were still broadcasting live. His microphone, still hot, captured every word, this is absolute madness. I won't be ambushed by some grandstanding congresswoman with a personal vendetta. Back on Jasmine Crockett's side of the split screen, she remained seated, unfazed. She calmly reached for a glass of water, took a sip, and looked directly into the camera. For the record, she said clearly, this isn't about vengeance. It's about truth. And Piers Morgan just ran from it. Within minutes, clips of the meltdown were circulating on every platform, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, even Facebook. A 5-second loop of Piers yanking off his earpiece while Jasmine held up the lawsuit paper was retweeted over 1 million times by the end of the hour. The hashtags shifted again, hashtag Crockett serves justice, hashtag Piers meltdown, hashtag live lawsuit legend. Meanwhile, at the network, producers were scrambling to contain the PR disaster. Piers' agent was on the phone with legal. Interns were being yelled at for not cutting the feed in time. Backstage, one producer whispered to another, this isn't just a TV moment. This is going to be in law school textbooks. That night, major outlets picked up the story. CNN ran the headline, Crockett sues Morgan Live, defamation case explodes on British broadcaster set. Even Fox News called it the most jaw-dropping live confrontation in political media this year. But the real storm was just beginning. Because Piers wasn't done yet. Just hours after the now infamous broadcast, Piers Morgan re-emerged, not on his own show, but in a furious video posted to his personal X account. He looked disheveled. No lighting crew. No makeup. Just him, a shaky phone camera, and raw indignation. "Let me be crystal clear," he began, voice tight with anger. "I will not be intimidated by an American politician who's clearly using this lawsuit as a publicity stunt. Jasmine Crockett ambushed me on my own show, and now she wants to silence me in court. Good luck." He leaned forward, jabbing his finger toward the camera. "I have every right to question elected officials. That's what journalism is. If we start letting politicians sue reporters for asking hard questions, we lose the press entirely." But something was off. The normally composed Piers was unraveling. His rant went on for nearly 8 minutes, bouncing between outrage, self-pity, and jabs at woke cancel culture. The internet wasn't buying it. Comments flooded in. "You accused her of criminal conduct with zero evidence. That's not journalism. Imagine thinking you can say anything and never face consequences. Jasmine Crockett just broke the British bulldog." Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett wasn't resting. That same night, she released a formal press statement through her office, detailing the legal complaint. "Mr. Morgan's statements were not only false and malicious, they were designed to damage my professional reputation and personal integrity. This case is about ensuring the media remains accountable for what it puts into the world." She ended with a quote that would go viral in its own right: "Freedom of speech is not freedom from consequences." The legal world was already buzzing. But behind the scenes, something else was brewing. Piers Morgan had just hired a legal team of his own. And they were about to make a very public counterstrike. By sunrise the next morning, Piers Morgan's team had fired the first retaliatory shot, a counter-lawsuit, filed in London's High Court, accusing Jasmine Crockett of malicious intent, reputational harm, and orchestrated defamation of character. The headline in the Daily Mail was explosive: "Piers Morgan countersues U.S. Congresswoman, claims coordinated smear campaign." In his filing, Piers alleged that Crockett used her lawsuit as a calculated media stunt designed to embarrass and financially damage him. He accused her of turning a standard interview into political theater, and claimed she was trying to intimidate the press. But across the Atlantic, Crockett's legal team wasn't rattled. Her attorney, Sheila Monroe, a fierce constitutional litigator known for never backing down, issued a blistering statement: "If Mr. Morgan believes that responding to a legitimate defamation claim with a retaliatory lawsuit will intimidate a sitting U.S. Congresswoman, he's misunderstood both the law and the woman." Cable news was saturated. Panelists on MSNBC called it a case study in media ego meeting political consequence. Fox News spun it differently: Crockett weaponizes the courts against free speech. Meanwhile, Crockett herself remained calm. At a local event in Dallas, she addressed the crowd for the first time since the live incident: "I didn't file this case to go viral. I filed it because people in power, whether they hold a mic or a gavel, need to be reminded, words matter." The crowd erupted in applause. And as reporters swarmed her outside the venue, Jasmine paused briefly, turned to the cameras, and said, "If Mr. Morgan wants a fight, he picked the wrong courtroom, and the wrong woman." Behind the scenes, rumors were swirling that several major figures were preparing to weigh in, and one name in particular was about to step forward and tilt the scales dramatically. 3 days after the media firestorm exploded, a surprising figure stepped into the ring, none other than famed civil rights attorney and former U.S. Attorney General, Eric Holder. In a press conference held in Washington, D.C., Holder stood beside Jasmine Crockett, delivering a pointed message to the press: "Let's be clear, what we witnessed wasn't journalism. It was character assassination under the guise of commentary. And in this country, we still believe in accountability, even for those who hide behind cameras." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Holder's presence added serious legal weight, and political firepower, to Crockett's case. Reporters bombarded him with questions. Are you officially joining her legal team? Does this case set a precedent for public discourse? Is this about Piers Morgan, or a larger issue? Holder's reply was razor-sharp. This is about facts. This is about responsibility. And if you happen to be Piers Morgan, it's also about consequences. Back in London, Piers Morgan was fuming. He took to the airwaves again that evening, this time live from his home studio, in a desperate attempt to regain control of the narrative. I am being ganged up on by American elites who don't want tough questions. Now they've dragged Eric Holder into this. What's next? A congressional investigation. But his voice cracked slightly at the end. Viewers noticed. The confident media titan now sounded cornered. Meanwhile, Jasmine wasn't slowing down. That night, she appeared on the Rachel Maddow show, where she delivered the line that would define the story: this isn't about silencing the press. It's about silencing lies. By now, nearly every news outlet in the English-speaking world was covering the battle. Journalists, politicians, legal scholars, all were weighing in. Editorials were split. Audiences were polarized. And then came the twist no one saw coming. The network behind Piers Morgan and Censored issued a public statement. Late Friday afternoon, a bombshell statement was posted across all official platforms of Piers Morgan's broadcasting network, in stark white font against a black background. The network is currently reviewing all legal matters and on-air content associated with the recent interview between Piers Morgan and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. We take allegations of defamation seriously. Effective immediately, Piers Morgan and Censored will be placed on a temporary production pause pending internal review. The media world erupted. Cable news anchors interrupted their shows mid-segment to report the statement live. Social media was instantly flooded with variations of one sentence: they pulled Piers. Some were stunned. Others weren't. But all agreed on one thing: this was unprecedented. Piers Morgan, the unshakable, the defiant, the loudest man in the room, had just been benched. Inside the network, sources leaked more. Executives were deeply split, some feared legal blowback, others worried about damage to their brand's credibility. Advertisers were already pulling out. Behind closed doors, the word termination clause was being whispered. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett's team kept silent. No gloating. No statements. Just calm legal precision. But that didn't stop her supporters from celebrating. Outside her Dallas office, a spontaneous crowd gathered, signs reading, "Truth over talking points, WE stand with Crockett, accountability isn't cancellation," and in a moment captured by hundreds of phones, Jasmine stepped outside briefly, smiled at the crowd, and gave a simple nod, no words. But in London, Piers wasn't staying quiet. Within hours, he posted a furious video message to his 14 million followers: "This is cancel culture at its most disgusting. I've been silenced for doing my job. I will not go down quietly. The world hasn't heard the last of me." He ended the clip with a defiant glare into the lens, but his usual bravado rang hollow. Because behind the scenes, Jasmine's lawsuit had just triggered an even deeper investigation. And it wasn't just about defamation anymore. As Piers Morgan raged online and his show remained off-air, something far more dangerous than public backlash began unfolding quietly in the background. Jasmine Crockett's legal team had filed a motion for discovery. And what they uncovered was worse than anyone expected. Emails. Internal memos. Off-air planning notes. All obtained legally, and all revealing that Piers and his producers had discussed Crockett well before the interview. One flagged email read, "Push hard on the legal cover-up angle, she won't see it coming. We want sparks." Senior producer, 48 hours before taping another, more damning, had Piers himself typing, "She's been too clean for too long. Time to rattle her brand a bit. Let's go hard. I'll handle the blowback." Those documents were now part of the lawsuit's official evidence. Jasmine's legal counsel issued a single, devastating update to the press: "This case has gone beyond a reckless accusation. We now have evidence of premeditated defamation with the intent to damage a sitting member of Congress for entertainment value." The phrase, premeditated defamation, hit like a sledgehammer. That same night, the New York Times ran a front-page piece titled, "Beyond the Interview, Crockett Lawsuit Exposes Media Targeting Playbook." Suddenly, legal experts weren't just talking about damages, they were talking about malice, a key component in high-profile defamation cases. If proven, it could mean serious financial consequences for both Piers and the network. Meanwhile, inside Crockett's camp, there was cautious confidence. As one aide put it, "We don't need to destroy anyone. The truth is doing that on its own." Back in London, Morgan's legal team went into crisis mode. They tried to block the emails from being used in court, but the judge refused. And then came the final gut punch. A second on-air guest from a different episode, a former whistleblower, stepped forward with her own accusation, that Piers and his team had distorted her words, too. Suddenly, Jasmine Crockett's case wasn't just her case anymore. It was the beginning of something much bigger. The moment the second guest came forward, a former defense contractor named Lydia Shaw, everything shifted. In a solemn televised interview with PBS NewsHour, Shaw revealed, "After my segment aired, I was flooded with threats. But the most shocking part? The footage was edited. What I said was twisted. I asked them to fix it. They never did." Within 48 hours, a third guest, a climate scientist, stepped forward with a similar claim. Then a fourth. By the end of the week, 6 former guests of Piers Morgan Uncensored had come forward alleging misrepresentation, deceptive editing, or pressure to go viral. The headlines were relentless: pattern of manipulation. Crockett lawsuit unleashes tidal wave of accusations. BBC News, guests say Piers Morgan show, scripted outrage, to damage reputations. The Guardian, Congresswoman Crockett's lawsuit may spark industry-wide reckoning. Reuters, back at the network, top executives held an emergency board meeting. Leaks revealed what was discussed: a possible permanent cancellation of the show, a complete internal audit, and even the hiring of an outside firm to assess ethical violations. But Jasmine Crockett stayed quiet through it all: no media appearances, no victory laps. She was seen only once, exiting a courthouse in a gray blazer, her only comment to the crowd: "This was never about taking someone down. It was about lifting up the truth." Meanwhile, Piers Morgan was on the defensive. He appeared on a sympathetic talk show in Australia via video link, visibly shaken. "This has gone too far. Now people are crawling out of the woodwork with stories just because I asked hard questions. I'm not the villain here. I'm the scapegoat." But public opinion wasn't on his side anymore. Even longtime supporters began to distance themselves, with one former producer anonymously telling Sky News, "We created conflict on purpose. It wasn't always journalism. Sometimes it was theater." The British Parliament's Media Ethics Committee announced it would open a formal inquiry into editorial standards in high-profile political broadcasting. And as for Jasmine's lawsuit? The judge just set a trial date. 6 months later, the courtroom was packed. Journalists from across the globe filled the pews, cameras lined the courthouse steps, and social media was on fire with countdowns to the verdict in Crockett versus Morgan. Jasmine Crockett sat silently at the plaintiff's table, dressed in a sharp navy suit. Her legal team flanked her, calm and composed. Across the aisle, Piers Morgan looked tired, a shadow of the media titan he once projected. His once defiant glare had turned inward. The trial had been brutal. The jury heard damning evidence: the internal emails, the guest testimonies, the confirmed editing of quotes, and Piers's own on-air meltdown. The defense tried to spin it as spirited journalism, but the jurors didn't buy it. After 3 hours of deliberation, they returned. The foreman rose. In the matter of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett versus Piers Morgan, on the charge of defamation with reckless disregard for the truth, we find in favor of the plaintiff. Gasps echoed in the room. We award compensatory damages in the amount of $5 million, and punitive damages of $12 million. Piers sat frozen. Jasmine blinked slowly, gave a tiny nod, and whispered something to her attorney. Reporters said she mouthed, "Let's go back to work." The media response was immediate and staggering. Crockett wins, truth over spectacle. The Washington Post, jury sends message, lies aren't free speech. The Atlantic, Morgan ordered to pay $17 million after explosive trial. Sky News, more importantly, the case triggered reforms. Congress introduced a bipartisan bill nicknamed the Crockett Standard, focused on ethical media practices, especially in political journalism. Several networks announced internal reforms. And journalism schools across the country began using the case as a new model in media ethics coursework. Piers Morgan, for his part, vanished from the public eye. His show was never revived. The network quietly removed all past episodes from streaming platforms. As for Jasmine Crockett, she didn't bask in it. She returned to Congress. Continued her work. And when asked about the verdict at a press conference, she simply said, "This wasn't about me. It was about setting a line, and letting the world know that even the loudest voice in the room still has to answer to the truth."